Good morning, everybody. My guest this morning is Niko Skievaski. He is the co-founder of Redox, the modern API for healthcare. He also used to do some work at Epic. We'll dive into both of those now. Niko, are you ready to take us to the top?
Yeah, totally.
All right, so start us off first. What is Redox and what's the business model?
Yeah, so Redox connects applications, so software developers, with health systems. Our business model is essentially to license connections to various health systems. So if a software developer is selling an application to 5 health systems, we charge them 5 licenses to share data with those health systems on the other side.
You must have the patience of Mother freaking Teresa to deal with healthcare. Why on earth do you get into this market?
The warm and fuzzy answer is that it's important, right? As entrepreneurs, we all say we're out there trying to change the world, but the cool thing for us is every day we get to talk to entrepreneurs, software developers who are building technologies that will actually impact patients' lives, make healthcare more efficient, make care more effective for patients out there. So at the end of the day, that's what it's really about. From our perspective, we really see technology innovation in healthcare as something that's absolutely needed. So our technology, this API layer that enables the use of this data, is a real core piece of that infrastructure. So that's why we do it. It's you joke about it being taking a while in the healthcare space, and that's totally true. But someone's got to do it, right? We've got to see the innovation come from technology in this space. And so we're going to see that over the next few years as health systems adopt more and more technology.
And how do you make money?
Yeah, so we charge the software developers. The software developers charge the health system. So we try not to get in the way. We are a middleman in between health systems and software developers, but we try not to throw another contract into the sales cycle with health systems. That is an unnecessary piece of friction that we try to avoid. So we've become essentially a subcontractor to the software vendors, another part of their technical stack. They might be paying Amazon for hosting, and then they we'll add on Redox for that API layer to get to health systems. It's kind of part of that infrastructure that a developer thinks about when they're building out their technology.
And is this a pay-as-you-go model, or it's a monthly fee for a certain amount of API calls, or what?
Yeah, so we thought about doing the number of API call model, but the sad reality of the healthcare data space is that it's often a fire hose. The health system will send hundreds of thousands of messages for every patient in its organization. And, we can apply filters, but it's not often up to the application developer on the types of data that they're getting or the amount of data. So what instead we do is charge for the number of connections that they have to the various health systems. And it is a monthly model. So if you're connecting to one health system, then it's one licensing fee, and it increments from there based on the number of health systems you're connecting to. It does scale a little bit depending on the type of data. So if you just need to know what patients are where in the health system, that's one type of data. But if you also need to know, the medication list for every type of patient, then that's another sort of data feed. So depending on the interface, it scales a little bit.
And is this a SaaS model then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we don't charge for statement of works or upfront implementation fees or anything like that. It's all SaaS.
And they pay, again, based off kind of per connection. So what's the average kind of software vendor or data provider or software developer paying you per month?
A couple grand. So most people are connecting up to 1 or 2 or 3 health systems. Each health system connection is around $1,000. So got that average of 2-3 grand per customer.
And what's the backstory here? What year did you found the company in?
We founded it in 2014.
Okay. And was this like right out of college for you? I mean, where were you in your life at this point?
Yeah, so I had been working in the corporate world for about 7 years. I did 4 years at Wells Fargo as an operations analyst, and then went to grad school, and then went to work at Epic, so the big electronic medical record company. I actually went to Epic to get my hands on the data. I went to school for economics, so I wanted to try to understand, what we could do to use data to make healthcare better, right? The amount of data that's stored in electronic medical records has a ton of potential to identify, trends in the data, things that we might be able to intervene on from a behavior aspect. And when I got to Epic, realized that they actually don't have the data. The data is kept in the basements of, in data centers that health systems manage all around the country. So, while I was there, I really learned a lot about how Epic does a lot for the provider workflow and how electronic medical records do a lot to help providers become more efficient. But one of the challenges is now that healthcare is digitized, how do we get that data out of the basement into the cloud where software developers, modern app developers can use that to become more efficient? And that's a lot of where the idea behind Redox came from. My CTO and co-founder James, he was helping startups as a consultant hook up to various health systems, and basically doing the same project over and over again, and realized, why don't we build an engine to put this together. So that's where the idea came from, is let's do this in a scalable way. Let's make an engine that can scale across multiple health systems. Basically, any health system, any electronic medical record, we plug into it and standardize the data, so developers don't have to take on that task.
And did you throw your own money at this as you built it, or did you decide to go out and raise capital?
Yeah, well, we did a little bit of both, which I think typically happens, right? We the first it was probably 2 years after leaving Epic, where James and I were working together but not really understanding what to do with our hands. We started a whole bunch of different companies, really on a in hindsight, it was really about discovering Redox. We started a co-working space. We helped to start many health tech companies in the Madison area, and eventually found ourselves with the utter realization that Redox was the thing we needed to sink our teeth into. We brought on our third co-founder to really round out the company, Luke. And for the first year of working on this, we basically made no money. We
This was
worked
2014?
Yeah, this is 2014. We worked out of that co-working space that I mentioned we started. So we had very next to free office space, and put our heads together, lived off of savings and side projects and consulting gigs, until we formed around this idea of building the scalable interface engine in the cloud. We raised a small seed round then. So at the very, $350,000 at the end of 2014. That allowed us to hire our first couple developers. So we all paid ourselves basically the minimum we all needed to survive on for that next year.
Which was what?
It was so we literally came together and said, okay, everyone take your bills out and let's figure out, what we need to survive. And we were all very transparent with each other. So I think it was around $35K per person. And so we all paid each other the same, because we said, okay,
you're talking about the three founders, about $3,000 per month?
the three founders, and we hired pretty much 3 people in the next couple months. So this group of 6, we all paid ourselves exactly the same, $35,000. And it was a huge sacrifice for all of us, because at the time, everyone in the company had worked at Epic. Epic, big tech company, pays very well, market salaries, very well in comparison.
We're talking like 200, 150.
Yeah, that ballpark. So this was a huge sacrifice for everyone. Everyone had to convince their significant others that this was a good idea.
That's always the hardest part. How did yours respond? Are you with somebody?
Yeah. My wife, she worked at Epic also. She joined a startup after she left Epic, and so she understood here. She understood.
That's double risk. You're both in a startup.
Yeah, and so she understood the why we were doing this, and at the end of the day, the sort of convincing that I had to do was, hey, if this fails, this doesn't work, we have about a year runway on this $35,000, on this $350,000 that we raised. If it doesn't work out, worst case scenario is I'll get a job. And that's the kind of cool thing for entrepreneurs, is literally worst case scenario, you can go get a job. And typically entrepreneurs, we have background in some specialized skill set. We can go get jobs in different areas. I could go work in healthcare at a health system or with another health tech company. So that was my fallback plan, was, I'll get a job. No big deal.
And Niko, fast forward us. So, have you raised in total the 350, or have you raised more?
No, we've raised a couple rounds since then. So it took us about a year from end of November to about October of 2015 to get live at our first site. So we got an application that it's an iPad app that measures blood loss in the operating room. So they take pictures of anything that gets bloody, and it measures how much blood loss a patient's had, which is mind-blowing to me. We integrated that application with Hackensack University Medical Center in New Jersey. So it's actually any C-section. So when babies are being born via C-section, all the blood loss numbers get transferred from this app through Redox into their electronic medical record. That was our first go live. It took us, 10, 11 months to get live with our first customer after raising that first round. That also coincided with us raising our Series A. So I think we raised our A pretty early, but the problem we were setting out to solve was big enough that the traction of having one live customer and also having lots of applications, the developers who were really excited about it, the developer community who were rallying behind us, allowed us to raise we raised a 3.5 million Series A. Brought in some Boston investors who we really like. They're still on the team. And that was at end of 2015. So from then we really started ramping
Niko,
up.
real quick, what were you at in terms of revenue at that point when you raised the 3.5?
Well, we had that one live customer, so we were at about $1,000 or so, $2,000 a month in MRR.
And
so
was that a convertible note or a priced round?
It was a priced round.
So how'd you approach the equity? I mean, the valuation conversation with so little revenue, but clearly a big opportunity.
Yeah, so I feel like when you're raising, you can either raise based on your traction. So how much money are you making on a day-to-day basis, and some revenue multiplier. So you can either raise based on your traction, or you can raise based on your potential, the sort of exciting, goosebump inspiring things that's in your business model. And for us, this raise was all about potential. Give
me the goosebumps. What the pitch sound like?
The pitch was,
sell me, baby.
There are a ton of innovations happening in healthcare, right? Digital health is one of the fastest growing places for venture capital, because there's so many companies out there trying to start something innovative in the healthcare space. But the common problem they have is sharing data with the legacy systems at hospitals and clinics around the country. Redox opens that problem up. We enable all these applications, some of which will inevitably go under, but many will actually be adopted by health systems. We are essentially selling pickaxes, right, to the people who are out there fighting, trying to innovate in the space. And that's a big, grand vision. We had a really great team. We have a really great team to do that, with a tremendous background in the space that comes from the leading electronic medical record in the industry. So that's all the big, warm, and fuzzy. And by the way, we've done it once already. It's up and running and working. And that's the potential that we're selling. So it wasn't about the couple grand we were making a month. It was about this potential of working with the army of software developers who are innovating in the space. Beyond just the one live customer, we had probably a couple hundred developers who had signed up and basically made applications on top of our APIs. So they're hooking into Redox and trying to sell their products into health systems. So our go-to-market strategy was all about getting the developers first, and then the developers drag us into the health systems as they sell their products. And that was a pretty unique go-to-market strategy as well that investors got excited about.
And Niko, we're running short here on time, so just a few quick questions here. That valuation, more or less than 10 million post-money?
It was a little less.
A little less, okay. So you sold about 30% of the business?
Yep.
Okay. And is that all the capital you've raised to date, or have you raised additional capital? What are you all in? How much total raised?
Yeah, so fast forward to January, we closed another 9 million Series B round. And then literally today, I'm doing press pitches to announce another $1 million from a strategic investor that we're announcing on Thursday. But that was money in the bank a couple of weeks ago. So all in, we're at 14 million that we raised so far.
That's great. And this episode won't go live for many, many months. Who is that other additional investor?
So we raised money from Intermountain Health System. They're a big regional player, cover basically all of Utah going up into Idaho. And the thing that we love about them is they're a huge innovator in the IT space. They built their own electronic medical record back in the day when these things were being invented. They've always been an innovator. And from our perspective, it's true validation from the health system side of our market.
Yep.
We've traditionally sold to the app developers. Now it's the health system side buying
Niko, you said you were 14 million all in.
Yep.
Okay. And what are you at now in terms of developers using you? How many paying customers do you have?
So we're in about 100 health systems across the country. And
what does that mean, though? Because you told me you price based off developers and how many connections.
Yep. So these health systems that are using us, they'll have between 1 and 4 or so applications that they'll be running through Redox. So on average, I'd say 2 or so applications per health system. So that's like 200 or so applications that are live and integrated through our platform.
So is that 200 developers paying you then? Is that how I understand that?
Yeah. 200 application software. So these are like startups, right? So there could be a team of developers making an application, telemedicine app, or a remote patient monitoring app, or patient engagement application.
Got it. And you said of those 200 developers, they on average will have maybe 1, 2, or 3 kind of data connections. So right? So can I take 200 times 2,000 to basically back into a range of your monthly recurring revenue?
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
about 400,000.
Yeah, that'd be a nice back of the napkin way of doing it.
I mean, that's healthy though, right? So you're doing about $400,000 in monthly recurring revenue, 200 developers building these things. You're in about 100 different kind of hospitals that have adopted you. $14 million raised. That's a good thing. That's why you look so young, right?
Yeah, from our perspective now, it's really just about how do we crank that? How do we get into more health systems faster and really allow health systems to adopt innovation at a faster clip?
Any churn, any developers that have started paying you and then had to leave? What's your gross customer churn monthly?
We've lost two.
So not a lot.
Yeah, and actually it was so the number that we care about is number of live connections between developers and health systems, and we've lost two on that. And in both cases, it was because the health system was running a pilot with that application, and they decided not to extend the pilot.
How many of those total are there? The 200?
Yeah.
Got it. That's great. And what are you paying to acquire a customer?
That's something that we're probably not as sophisticated as we should be on. We have a pretty pure inbound strategy. So we put out a lot of content. We talk a lot about how we hope the world works from an integration standpoint, and we let people come to us. But we haven't really done the math of, how many hours are we spending, from a content marketing perspective and a customer onboarding perspective to figure out what that customer acquisition cost really is.
So a lot of times when people have raised the amount of capital you've raised, it's for two reasons, either headcount or marketing spend. It sounds like yours maybe is going more towards headcount. What's your team size?
We're at about 35 now.
That's why.
Yeah. So it's mostly developers. We've got a big engine. We process a lot of very sensitive data, right? So this is clinical patient data that's going through our engine. So a lot on the DevOps and performance side. And we're a developer platform. So documentation and things like that to support the engine are really critical.
So 35, all based in Wisconsin?
Most of us, I'd say 2/3 are in Wisconsin. We have a workforce that, people can live wherever they want. But most of us choose to live here because we actually like Madison.
Yeah.
Surprising to a lot of people. But we really love it here. But we have developers in basically coast to coast now. We have a small office in Portland with 2 people in it. We have a small group of 3 in Austin, so they're looking at getting an office. We have a couple people in Chicago, and they're going to open up a tiny office there too. So, but yeah, everyone's really comfortable working remotely, hopping on video calls and, doing video stand-ups and things like that.
If Amgen or Pfizer offers you 40 or 50 million bucks for the company today, do you sell?
No. From our perspective, well, and particularly because of those types of, these are pharmaceutical companies. I don't think they're well suited to solve the problem we're trying to solve. We did have an acquisition offer really early in our company, and the reason why we decided not to do it was because we didn't think that the company that was acquiring us was going to be able to solve the problem as fast as we were.
Why'd they want it?
They wanted it to add it to their product. So they have a really great product that needs to integrate with health systems, and it would have been something to add to that to make them go faster.
Were they from the healthcare space, or was it more developer focused and tech space?
Yeah, it was from the healthcare space. And I think that's, at the end of the day, if we were to get acquired, it would be because we believe that the acquiring company would be able to do this faster and better than we could on our own.
Yep.
So we're a little principled behind that, but yeah.
That's good. Hey, Niko, it makes perfect sense, man. Let's wrap up here with the famous 5. You ready?
I don't know. I don't know what this famous 5 is.
I have no idea what these are. They're easier than everything I've asked so far. Okay, how about that?
Okay.
All right, number 1. What's your favorite business book?
Oh, man. The one I think about the most, way back in years ago, I read a book called oh shit, I forget the name. Moments of Magic. It's like an 80s business book about a Scandinavian airline. Totally not a cool one at all. But it was just about customer service, and that really stuck to me. Never letting a customer down, going above and beyond. And I think it's just very easy fundamentals of making customers happy.
Number 2, is there a CEO you're following or studying?
So honestly, and it's cliche in the healthcare space, but my old boss at Epic, Judy Faulkner, she's a self-made billionaire, private company, has 10,000 employees, and I just really respect the work that she's done to grow the company and stay true to the mission of making healthcare a better place. So we love that we were able to learn from her for so long, but also just as a founder, she's an elusive creature.
Epic is your $100 million exit, isn't it?
Epic doesn't acquire companies. So
really, it's part of their principle.
Yep, it's one of their core principles.
Interesting. All right, number 4, is there a favorite or number 3, is there a favorite online tool you have, like Acuity scheduling?
I love Calendly, so the scheduling apps are huge, right? Yeah. Calendly is one of my favorites.
Number 4, how many hours of sleep do you get every night?
6. I have a baby.
Oh, nice. One little one or more?
Yeah, just one.
How old?
He's 10 months, so.
Wow.
Yeah, he goes to bed around 7. I work from like 8 or so until midnight, and then he wakes up at 6. So yeah, he sleeps pretty good for a baby. But yeah, I wake up with him around 6.
And
6.
so, I assume you're married then?
Yep,
And,
yep.
and how old are you?
I am 30.
All right, last question, Niko. Take us back 10 years. What do you wish your 20-year-old self knew?
I didn't know about entrepreneurship. I thought I was going to be an economist. So I went to school, I went to grad school for it, thinking that I could be an economist and, analyze things all my life. And it's just not work that's cut out for me. I didn't even know or think about starting a company. And I think if I was 20 years old and I told myself that, maybe I would have started a company sooner, but then again, maybe I wouldn't be where I am now. So it's kind of a hard question, but I think I would have gone back and said, hey, have you ever thought about starting something rather than, working at a big bank?
There you guys have it from Niko. He wishes that entrepreneurship was even an option back 10 years ago when he was 20 years old. Meanwhile, in 2014, launched his company Redox. It is the healthcare API. Got a lot of success early on. They're now 35 people. They've raised about $14 million. Over 200 applications inside over 100 different hospitals from these developers that are building applications using their API to give value, again, to clients and healthcare providers. $22,000 ARPU on average per month, so doing somewhere around $400,000 in monthly recurring revenue. Only 2 people have churned, so almost no churn and almost all inbound growth to date. Again, team of 35 based in Wisconsin. Niko, thank you for taking us to the top.
Thanks. Have a good one.